Many new and aspiring developers are overwhelmed by the idea of contributing to open source projects. And I hear so many say that they get stuck staring at the computer, panicking because they just feel like they should be ready to contribute but have absolutely no idea on how to get started. And that contributing seems like such a daunting and intimidating task. If this is you, then get ready because in this video we're going to be completing Hacktoberfest step by step. So, Hacktoberfest has officially landed, marking the perfect opportunity to begin your adventure into the world of open source collaboration. And in today's video, we're going to be covering the aim, the rules, and registration in the Hacktoberfest event. We're also going to be looking at the basics of GitHub, including account creation, what pull requests are, and how to make your first pull request. We're also going to be looking at some of my recommended projects. But if you're not sure what Hacktoberfest is or why it's the perfect event to participate in, then I created this video all about it and I'll link to it in the description. But in summary, it's the biggest open source event for people of all skills and skill levels. Whether you can code or write documentation, whether you test applications or create graphical assets, regardless of your skill level, then you have something to offer the open source community and you should absolutely participate in this event. The aim behind Hacktoberfest at its core is simply to encourage healthy collaboration in open source projects. But what exactly does that mean? Well, if we head on over to the official Hacktoberfest website and check out the participation page, they do a great job of documenting the three core values of the event, which are that everyone is welcome regardless of skill set or skill level or even previous open source experience. The second core value is that quantity is fun, but quality is key. Now, this is a super important one, and we will touch more on this in the criteria for contributors section of the video. But essentially, it's aimed at ensuring that we create high-quality contributions that better the open source community rather than overwhelm maintainers with spammy contributions. And the third core value is that short-term action equals long-term impact. And when we're creating quality contributions to open source projects, no matter how small they are, we have the potential to create a lasting impact on a considerable number of people. Before we get started with contributing to open source and participating in Hacktoberfest, there are just a couple of things that we need to know and be aware of. And the full list of criteria can be found on the participation page. And I highly recommend that you read them all since they are equally as important. But here is the TLDR. To be counted, your pull request must be created during the month of October to a public repository that has opted into the Hacktoberfest event and be willing to accept Hacktoberfest contributions, and this is important. Projects that have opted into Hacktoberfest will have this Hacktoberfest tag. In addition, we must ensure that we create a high-quality pull request to the given project, because maintainers also have the ability to mark a pull request as spam or invalid. And if you accumulate enough of these, you can be excluded from the event entirely. It's worth remembering that October can be a busy and sometimes frustrating time for maintainers of open source projects. In previous years, this event has caused a number of maintainers to become overwhelmed in dealing with the effects of poor quality and spammy contributions just to game the system and win the t-shirt. So, if you're just starting out with your open source adventure and you're struggling to find something meaningful to contribute to, then please respect maintainers and their time by not giving in to the temptation to create a meaningless PR in the hopes that it makes it. Instead, stick around to the end where I will provide a bunch of projects that everyone can legitimately contribute regardless of their skill level. Okay, so now that we're all caught up on the aims, the values, and the criteria for contributors, we can get started with the contribution process by creating a GitHub account and configuring Git on it.
It's on my GitHub. Do you want to check it out?
And we're going to need a GitHub account to register for Hacktoberfest. So if you already have a GitHub account and you have Git correctly installed and configured on your machine, then feel free to skip to the next chapter in the timeline. Otherwise, let's get set up. So now open up your favorite browser and head on over to github.com. And then we need to locate and click on the sign up button here in the top right of the navigation bar. And then we need to enter our email address, followed by our password and our desired username. And then we're going to be asked whether we want to opt in to hear more about their future products. I'm already opted in on another account, so I'm going to say no to this one. Next up, we just need to solve the captcha puzzle. And next, we just need to grab the code they've emailed to us and paste it into the box. Now, they have a couple of questions for us so that they can help build a better product. Just answer them to match your own scenario. It doesn't really matter what you put here. And the final step is just to select the plan that we want. Now we're just going to go for the free tier. And that's it, we've created a GitHub account. Now that we have a GitHub account, we just need to configure Git on our local machine. Most people confuse Git and GitHub, thinking that they're the same thing. Now, we don't need to dive too deep into the differences today, but just note that they are two very different things, with Git being the technology behind version control and GitHub being the cloud-based hosting solution for your version-controlled repositories. Unlike Apple Macs, machines that run Windows do not come with Git pre-installed. So if you're a Windows user like me, you will first need to install Git before configuring it. Unfortunately, this is super simple and self-explanatory, so just visit this website and download the package, and then run the installer using the default choices. Once it's installed, we can configure Git. And we can double check that Git is installed by running git --version in our terminal. Alright, now that we have confirmed that Git is installed on our machine, we need to provide Git with our GitHub details that it should use when relaying our actions to the GitHub platform. And to do this, we need to run two commands. The first one is git config --global user.name, and then you add in quotation marks with your own name. The second one is git config --global user.email, and then in quotation marks your email address. And once you've run both of these commands in your terminal, making sure to replace the values with your own name and email, you will have successfully configured Git. Next up on our to-do list is to register our intention to participate in the event. And whilst this can technically be done at any time, I would recommend getting it done first so that you don't have to think about it. But if you're watching this in the last week of October, there's no need to panic. Register now and all your valid contributions should start appearing. So to register for HacktoberFest, let's navigate to their website, HacktoberFest.com, and then we're going to click Start Hacking, followed by Initiate on the Authorize with GitHub card. We then need to authorize Hacktoberfest, so let's click that button. And once the page loads, we then get to answer a few questions. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is just double check that our name and email address are correct. And we're then going to want to specify whether we are a contributor, maintainer, or event organizer, or a combination of all three, but I suspect you're probably just a contributor. And now we need to specify our experience level. So if you're a newbie, select that. And then we need to specify whether we're a code or non-code contributor. Next, we can specify whether we want the operational opt-ins, so whether you want digital badges. And then we can select whether we want the marketing opt-ins. Now, I don't want any of these, so I'm just going to say that I do not wish to receive any. And then next up, we need to acknowledge the terms and rules. And it's very important to notice here that it mentions that you'll get disqualified indefinitely from Hacktoberfest if you submit 2 or more pull requests that are identified as spammy. So select all of the rules and terms and then click register. And that's it. We've registered our intention to participate in the Hacktoberfest event. Okay, awesome. So we're all set up, registered, and ready to create our first pull request, right? Yeah, I know, it's pretty intimidating at first, and I get it. With words like fork, clone, branch, commit, push, and pull requests being thrown around, it's easy to feel that way. But rest assured that every open source contributor has felt like that, and honestly, it sounds and looks more challenging and intimidating than it really is. By the time you've earned your t-shirt, you'll be wondering why you were so worried about it. And if you do get hung up with any step, either drop me a comment on the video or jump into the Discord I have linked in the description and I'll be happy to help you out. Okay, so let's take a look at each of those intimidating words that we talked about just a moment ago and turn them into easy, actionable steps that you can put into practice and create your first pull request. So the special project that I have set up for you to both practice on and to provide value to those that contribute after you. And the best part is that you don't even have to worry about breaking it, because even if you manage to find a way to break it, it can easily be fixed. So let's get this first daunting pull request out of the way and under our belt, shall we? Awesome. So first up is forking. And forking just means to create a duplicate of the project under your own account so that you can work on it freely. To do this, we'll navigate to the Const Coding GitHub organization and click on the resources project. And then we'll click on the fork button up here and then click create fork. And that's it, that's forking done. Next up is cloning. Cloning a project really means to download the project to your local machine. And just like forking, it's a relatively easy step. Just click code and select the copy button next to this URL. I have my machine configured for SSH, so I need to use this URL. But if you don't know what that means, then you won't have it configured and you should just go with HTTPS. With this URL in your clipboard, open up your terminal and type git clone and then paste the URL and then hit enter to download the project. And that's cloning done. Branching. Okay, branches are used to define and isolate your changes. And this one is difficult to understand at first, especially in demonstrations. So don't worry too much if it doesn't make sense right now. Just make sure to follow this step, even though it looks like an additional pointless and redundant step, because it will save you some headaches later on.
Trust me.
Fortunately, branching in Visual Studio Code is super easy. First, we click down here where it says master, and then up here we click new branch. And then we type in our required branch name. What we name the branch at this stage doesn't make much of a difference, but when you start progressing to bigger open source projects, they might have a preference for naming conventions, in which they will probably document it in the README. But for this project though, it's not a big deal, so let's just roll with something simple like combining my GitHub handle with the word addition, creating something unique yet representative of the change that we're about to make. And then hit enter, and once we see our chosen branch name here in the bottom left, we know that we've successfully created and moved into our new branch. And that's branching done. Awesome, we made it. Now we get to create the changes to the project, but I realized that I haven't told you anything about the project other than it's totally safe for you to contribute to, and with that each new contribution, it becomes more insightful and useful. Okay, so what I want you to do is think about the single most impactful resource that you have come across in your mission to become a developer. It could be an article or a course, a YouTube video, or even a book. And I want you to create a new line in the respective file and add your resource so that others can benefit from the resource too. So the single most impactful resource that I've come across on my developer journey was a course by ZTM. So let's open up the courses.md file. .md means that it's a markdown file, which if you've not come across before, provides a neat little syntax to easily create a basic styled document. Now in the courses.md file, let's add a link to the course on a new line. We do that by wrapping our link text in square brackets, followed by the URL in a rounded brackets, making sure that there are no spaces between the brackets. And then we save the file and our changes are made. Committing changes refers to the process of informing Git about what changes you have made and the reasons for that change that you plan to push it up to the cloud in the next step. Again, this process is pretty simple. We just need to click the source control icon here on the sidebar and then hover over the changed file and click the plus icon. We then enter the reason for the change and then click this big commit button. The push. Pushing our changes is pretty much like it sounds. It's where we tell our terminal that we are ready to push our committed changes up to the cloud, which in our case is GitHub. To do this, I like to open up the terminal in Visual Studio Code, but you can use the terminal of your choice, and then type in git push origin, followed by the name of our branch, which we can see in the bottom left corner. So in my case, it's git push origin, my GitHub handle, and then addition. You will then need to authenticate that it's you by providing your password, or in my case, my SSH key. And with that, your changes have been pushed up to your fork. We're now on the final step, and how awesome is that? We just need to create the pull request. And a pull request, or a PR as it's more commonly known, is essentially a method for us to tell the maintainer of the project that we forked from that we have made some changes and are requesting that they review and merge the changes into the original project for everyone to benefit from. And to do this, we can simply click on this link in the terminal output, which will take us over to the original repository where we can edit the title and provide a little bit more of a description. And then we can create the pull request by clicking the pull request button. And that's your first pull request made. So now you're already a quarter of the way through earning your HacktoberFest swag. All you need to do now is create 3 more quality pull requests. And you can do this either by providing 3 more resources to this project, or you can look for other projects to join. And there are, of course, a couple of different ways that we can achieve this. The first is by searching GitHub for HacktoberFest. And this is a great way to go, but in my experience it requires some patience as you sift through the results looking for active projects that support the core values. Second is by using sites like upforgrabs.net if you feel ready to jump into real-world projects. And the third option is to check out your favourite online communities, as they often create fun little projects for you to participate in. For example, Zero to Mastery have set up 3 practice projects that anyone is welcome to participate in, and I'll link to all of these projects down below. But if we quickly check out the Webblocks project and open up the preview link, we can see all of the contributions that have been made so far on the project, and there are some really cool ones already. So now that you know what HacktoberFest is and why you should participate, how to participate and where to participate, come and join the brand new Cons Community Discord, where we'll be discussing the event, helping each other with the process and sharing some really awesome projects to participate in. See you over there.